evening friends. Bovine ephemeral fever. This is also called as the 3-day fever, and this is a viral disease caused by an ephemeral virus of the family Rhabdoviridae transmitted by the arthropod vectors. It may be the mosquitoes or the biting flies. It is a very common tropical and subtropical regions where it affects mainly the domestic animals, especially the cattle and buffaloes. And apart from this one also many other animals like yak is also affected. So this is especially in the intensive dairy or fattening production systems, or else the animals susceptible in this disease are the animals with sturdy and strong and musculature, and it is of the economic importance because it reduces the milk very drastically and also the fertility and cause abortions in many cases. So it manifests in several susceptible subjects simultaneously with a sudden episode of the fever accompanied by the muscle involvement with arthritis, stiffness of the limbs, severe pain in the limb or the lameness followed by the rapid recovery. It's a very short-stayed disease. And coming to the history, distribution of this epidemiology of the bovine ephemeral fever. So this was first reported in the Indonesia in 1919, and it was first reported in 1996 when an outbreak occurred in 450 kilometers south in Darwin of the Northern Territory in the Australia also. Different countries it is reported in different times, and it was first reported in Jiangsu province in North Shanghai in 1934 when the disease was called as the bovine influenza because it was having the clinical sign of very similar to that of the bovine influenza. And bovine ephemeral fever was first appeared in Taiwan in 1967. An ephemeral fever resembling the bovine ephemeral fever was first reported in Pakistan, the then part of the India, that's the Punjab, in 1919 as a disease of cattle known as the VIL. The disease was also reported in Tamil Nadu in southeast of India in 1924. The BEF was also reported in cattle and water buffalo in Uttar Pradesh in 1977, in the central north, Gujarat in west, and the Himachal Pradesh in the far north in 1997. Then coming to the etiology of this disease is caused by the bovine ephemeral fever virus, and it is belonging to the family Rhabdoviridae, and it is negative sense single-stranded RNA virus. The virus is enveloped and hence sensitive to the lipid solvents, maybe the alcohol. So it has a cone-shaped capsule with a spiky surface similar to the rabies virus. This is what we can call as the brother and sister virus of the rabies. Then the order belonging to the mononegavirales. Then you can see here the classification according to the family, genus and disease. So the Rhabdoviridae is a big family. It is containing Lyssavirus, ephemerovirus, then vesiculovirus. So three classifications are there. Then the disease caused by Lyssavirus is rabies, so a deadly disease, whereas the ephemeral fever is not a deadly disease, but it causes the bovine ephemeral fever virus in case of bovines only, whereas the Lyssavirus causes rabies in almost all the hot-blooded animals. And vesiculovirus causes the bovine vesicular stomatitis, one of the another important disease of the cattle. Then the bovine ephemeral fever is also called as the ephemeral fever. The word means lasting for a very short time, means the disease itself is a very short in case of the bovines. So the ephemeral means lasting for a very short time. Then the bovine ephemeral fever, the varieties of the synonyms and the similes and the similar names are there, like this bovine enzootic fever. So BEF, bovine ephemeral fever, is also known as bovine enzootic fever, and also the colloquial term is the 3-day sickness, or else it is also called as 3-day stiff sickness disease, and also the another name is dragon boat disease. And the other names of these disorders in different parts of the world, it is also said as the 3-day sickness or 3-day stiffness or stiff CKT, or the bovine influenza, dengue of the cattle, and wild disease, especially in Pakistan it is called as the wild disease. So the bovine ephemeral fever is also known as the 3 days or stiff disease. In different countries it is called as in the different synonyms. It is an infectious disease caused by the arthropod-borne rhabdoviridae, bovine ephemeral fever virus, affecting cattle and water buffaloes, or the name Bubalis bubalis. So they are also affected in certain part of the world, and mosquitoes are the most important vectors, and the bovine ephemeral fever BEF or BEFV, bovine ephemeral fever virus, has been isolated from the culicain and anophenoid type of the mosquitoes. Then it is characterized by sudden onset of the fever, then muscle stiffness, lameness, and very rapid recovery, both in case of the dairy cattle and also in case of the buffaloes, bubalus, or else what we can call as the water buffalo. Then coming to a little details about this particular disease, this is the Finlayson in the year 2010 found a major factor contributing to the halting of Israeli epidemics, that was onset of the cold weather when the average ambient temperature was below 16 degrees centigrade at night. So at that time this disease was there was an outbreak. In tropical areas, outbreaks of the clinical disease may be linked to rainy seasons. In the climatic conditions may become very favorable to the existence of the critical mass of the vector. Just after the onset of the rain and an association between the epidemics of this bovine ephemeral fever and prolonged rainfall, though now it is happening in many parts of the India, and this result in large populations of the mosquitoes that have been reported, and there is a coincidence between the increased populations of the mosquitoes and also the increased incidence of the disease. So coming to the virus morphology, it is a helical capsid envelope 180 nanometer in size. Then it is a bullet shaped virus which contains the glycoprotein. Then it is containing the protein matrix surrounded by these particularly the specific matrices. So it also contains the phosphoproteins, then genomic RNA, then many other structure which is very similar to that of the RNA virus. So the total length of the virus is 180 nanometer long, and there is inner helical capsid which is green in color, and the back matrix protein is there, then lipid envelope is there, and the width of this virus is about 80 nanometer. And this is the schematic diagram what you can see from this chart. And the family Rhabdoviridae, it is illustrating that this is the picture depicting the virion and the nucleoplastid, the nucleocapsid structures, and also the vesicular stomatitis indiana virus showing the characteristic bullet shaped virion. So this is a bullet shaped, and there are three varieties of this virus: Lissa virus, ephemeral fever virus, and bovine vesicular stomatitis virus. So it's a single linear standard negative sense RNA virus, and it is encoding for 5 protein, then N gene. There are 5 type of the genes are there. then nucleoprotein, P gene is phosphoprotein, M gene is a matrix protein, G gene is a glycoprotein, then L gene is a polymerase. So these are all the encodes of especially the protein which is affected on the above chart. Then virus replication, so it replicates the cytoplasm of the bovine cells. So initially there will be a transcription, then followed by varieties of this transcription process of this RNA, and especially the transcription later it is going to take place the translocation, and especially the varieties of this viral proteins are produced from the different type of the cells of the body. Then epidemiology of this diseases, it's a very commonly occurring disease in case of the Africa, Asia and Australia continentals. Of course in India also the disease is very rampant. Apart from India, the entire Australia is affected, the Sri Lanka is affected, and the entire African countries, they are all affected with this particularly the virus. And the susceptible hosts, so the most susceptible hosts, as told earlier, the cattle and water buffaloes. So cows are the least affected, and those less than 6 months of age show no clinical signs. So that means you can say that the cows are not affected, and fat animals are the worst affected, especially the animals which accumulate lot of fat and also at the same time with lot of muscle buildings. So all these both are highly susceptible. So some of the time the cachectic animals with a little what you call as this gain in the weight, they are also susceptible, whereas the fatty animals are more susceptible. The presence of serofibrinous exudate in the joints is indicative of the disease, and clinical diagnosis is very difficult sometimes, but with a little experience of dealing with the disease, and there are sometimes no pathognomonic the signs will be obtained, and epidemiological factors, especially the proliferation of arthropod vectors and simultaneously associated with a short-lived fever, and the presence of many immature neutrophils, and these strongly indicate that 3-day fever, or also it is known as the ephemeral fever. Then in the absence of any specific treatment, sometimes the symptoms are treated with antibiotics and anti-inflammatories. So it's one of the most popularly treated disease with NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents. Without any antibiotics also the medicality can be managed. The medical prophylaxis currently uses the live attenuated vaccines pending the development of the recombinant vaccines, which are giving promising results in certain endemic countries. Bovine ephemeral fever is an economically important arboviral disease that affects cattle and water buffaloes. In most cases, the main impact is on the productivity, maybe the milk production and also the calf production. While the illness is usually brief and it can result in decrease especially milk yield and loss of condition, the body coat will be totally lost, and the reproductive losses may also happen in the form of the abortions. Recovery can be prolonged in some cases if they are not handled properly. Mortality is typically it's low, sometimes it is 1 to 2%, and maximum what we can say is up to 10%, not more than that. Significantly higher case fatality rates reported in some recent outbreaks, especially in different parts of the world and also in Karnataka state. The etiology, as it is already told, that the bovine ephemeral fever virus, it is belonging to species of genus of the ephemerophore virus, which is also the Rhabdoviridae. At least 4 antigenic subtypes have been identified, but there is only one serotype, and some closely related viruses such as the Cotoncan virus may cause similar type of the illness, especially in the cattle. And additional ephemeral fever, this virus and unclassified rhabdovirus are so many other varieties are also there, like Adelaide, river virus, Kimberley virus, especially this Pochon virus, Yata virus, then Kupima virus, and that's the Obadian virus. So these are known to cause disease in the domestic animals, but can cross-react with bovine ephemeral fever virus in especially certain serological tests. So the species affected, already it is told that only the cattle and also the families of the yak, certain yaks and water buffaloes are known to be highly susceptible to the disease, especially very high morbidity is caused. The camels, especially the dromedary camels, can be seropositive, and the disease resembling ephemeral fever has been reported in this species. What it causes still is unknown. It's of course not well characterized. Very sporadic cases are there. So antibody to this particular virus have been found in the asymptomatic sheep, goats and pigs especially, and also in some wild animals like the African buffalo, then the hartebeest, then the wild beast, the giraffe. Some giraffes do harbor the virus. Then also the elephant, maybe Loxodonta africana, African elephants, and hippopotamus also some of them are seropositive. And apart from this one, few of the other animals like this antelopes and deers also seropositive, and the seroprevalence can be very high in some African wildlife, and some species might act as the reservoir host. And there is a cross reactivity with similar virus complicates in the interpretation of the serological test. Even whenever we are doing the mass screening, sometimes this will overlap. The experimental infections have been established in sheep, but there is currently no evidence that this species plays a role in the epidemiology of the bovine ephemeral fever. Yes, of course, sheep cannot be the transmitters, either they are not the transmitters or the hosts or intermediate host, whatever it may be, it is ruled out totally. Then the zoonotic potential of this disease is zero. There is no evidence that humans can be infected by the bovine ephemeral fever virus. Coming to the geographic distribution of this virus, the bovine ephemeral fever occurs in the tropical, subtropical and warm temperate regions of the Africa, Australia, Middle East and Asia. All these areas are being affected, and some countries experience localized outbreaks in the especially in certain years, and others report especially causes only during the epizootics. This ephemeral fever virus does not occur in the Europe. That means the Europe is free of this disease. So there are certain seropositive animals, but detected in central Russia, north or South America, the islands of the Pacific or New Zealand. Whereas one of the virus, that's the Cotoncal virus, has been detected in the Nigeria of the Africa, or else many of the European countries are free of this, particularly the bovine ephemeral fever viral disease. So this is the geographical distribution pattern. It's very clear that this disease is present in part of the Africa, then continental of the Asia, then Australia. These are the three important countries in which this BEF is known to occur, from the disease has been reported historically. Especially in the blue color, you can see that this disease is present in all these, particularly the company, and also the vectors are very important creatures in transmitting this, particularly the ephemeral fever. So this before 1995, the bovine ephemeral fever in the Asia, the pattern was little different. As the time went on, whenever it is done, in each 5 years there was a change in the pattern, and later it is restricted to certain parts of the Asia. So the structure or morphology of this bovine ephemeral fever virus, and especially this is varieties of the protein genes N, P, G and L are there. So accordingly the structure of this particularly a bullet shaped virus or the cone shaped virus, it is going to cause the bovine ephemeral fever. Coming to the transmission, as it is a vector borne disease, it is transmitted by the hematophagous insects, means any insect which is sucking the blood, and the bovine ephemeral fever virus appears to be transmitted by the different arthropods, but the identity of the vector or the vectors is not entirely, it is clear. It may be the mosquitoes, but sometimes it may be also due to the biting flies, and the virus has been isolated from the various genera of the mosquitoes and from a number of cunicoid species. So ticks, the role of ticks is ruled out. As of date, there are no evidences that the ticks are going to transmit and any other vectors. And laboratory observations together with the epidemiological studies suggest that mosquitoes are the primary biological vectors, and among these mosquitoes, the cunicoids might be significant vectors in the parts of especially the Kenya of the Africa, and of course in case of the India and other continentals. The wind-borne transmission of the infected vectors has been suspected in certain outbreaks, because as the wind blows in one direction, then against some other directions, the vectors will also be transmitted from one area to the other area. That's how the wind transmits the disease in the direction it goes. And there is no evidence that the bovine ephemeral fever has been transmitted between the animals, especially the contact, etc. But it is not spread by the close contact, body secretions, aerosol, droplet, etc. However, animals can be infected with the laboratory by intravenous inoculation of small amount of the blood from the affected animal to the non-affected animal. And this virus does not seem to transmitted in semen, and it is rapidly inactivated in the meat. Whenever we boil this meat, etc., then it is going to rapidly inactivate. And there is no evidence that animals become the carriers, just like the other diseases like this lumpy skin disease and the theileria, etc. They become carriers, but this does not belong, this true in case of the ephemeral fever. And transmission, it is due to the blood sucking cunicoid species, or also Anopheles mosquito and both Culex mosquito or Culecan mosquito species. And the contact transmission is never, it is reported as on date. So likely general directions of the seasonal spread of the virus is first, it is the East Asia, and this is the initially it is going to be generated in the Hong Kong, then it's going to China, then it goes to North Korea, then the South Korea. This is the pattern. Whereas the B is the Australian subcontinent, and you can see that it is transmitted from the central Australia to the peripheral Australia. Then the Middle East countries, especially the C, this is the Southern Africa. All these are the Southern Africa, this Tanzania, then Zambia, Angola, etc. So it is transmitted from north to south. Whereas the D Middle East, this is the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Iraq, then Oman, etc. varieties of the countries, they are also being transmitted by the general directions of the seasonal spread of the bovine ephemeral fever virus. And coming to the morbidity pattern, the morbidity rate is very high, variable depending upon the previous exposure and the age of the animals, and other varieties of the factors are there. It can approach 100% in certain outbreaks and can be low as 1 to 10% in others. That means sometimes whenever there is a severe outbreak, 100% of the animals may be affected, and sometimes only just 1 to 10% of the total population get infected. Clinical signs are usually more severe in adults than that of the cows, especially well-built animals. The symptomatic infections are rare in cattle less than 6 months of the age. That means the cows are not susceptible for the bovine ephemeral fever. So they have got they do not have the maternal antibodies. In spite of that thing, they are not infected. That's a surprising thing. So this is a typical viral infection, and hence follows a very typical pattern. And the bulls, animals in good condition and high producing cows are highly susceptible, and the mortality may shoot up in such animals up to the 10 to 30% have been reported in these animals. So the reason is not well exactly understood, but the hefty animals and the bulls and well-fed dairy cattle, they are going to succumb to death to the extent of 10 to 30%, a very big percent also. But overall the mortality, if you take maybe in the overall population, then it is restricted to 1 to 2% only maximum, but the case fatality may be 2 to 20%, and the animals may go up to the moribund stage, but with proper treatment they are going to recover. And occasionally higher were described during some recent outbreaks in the Middle East and also area. Why deaths were common in case of these outbreaks is currently uncertain. We do not know why there is a death is occurring, maybe due to varieties of the factors, that the secondary bacterial infection, then also the mismanagement or improper management of the disease infected animals, and many more reasons are also there. And overall buffalo are thought to be less severely affected than that of the cattle. Yes, it will come also to the buffaloes, but the severity is less. However, severe outbreaks can be seen, and mortality were reported in 5% during one outbreak in the Philippines, where the buffalo population is a very common thing. So the mortality pattern is also obtained up to the 5%, especially in the Philippines. Coming to the incubation period, means the introduction of the virus inside the animal body, then the animal develops the clinical signs of the disease. So it takes a short time to cause the disease after entry into the body. The incubation period is thought to be 2 to 4 days in most cases, with a maximum of the 10 to 11 days in most of the animals. And the clinical signs, yes, varieties of the clinical signs are there, and we have to be very thorough with the clinical signs. And clinical signs is vary in individual animals, but the classic course begins with a fever, which is often biphasic to the monophasic. Biphasic means initially the fever will be there, very high temperature, then it subsides automatically, once again it shoots up. That is called as the biphasic type of this thing, especially the fever. Whereas the polyphasic means in several days, several times this fever reaches to its peak. The temperature peaks typically 12 to 18 hours apart. So maybe the biphasic or polyphasic. And in case of lactating animals, the milk production drastically reduced or dramatically reduced during the first fever spike. Whenever there is a first attack itself, the milk lay down or the milk down or the total quantity of the milk will drastically be zero, and some animals it becomes zero also. And there are often few other clinical signs at the time, though some animals may be depressed or stiff or reluctant to move. And the illness soon become more obvious. Most animals become inappetent and depressed. So there is an increase in the heart rate, then there is a tachypnea or increase in the respiration rate, and serous or mucoid discharge from the nose. And the another clinical sign is profuse salivation. Then there will be a muscle twitching and goals of shivering or lacrimation. So you need to identify these are all the clinical signs. So there will be an increased heart rate, tachypnea, serous or mucus descent from the nose, and there is profuse salivation and muscle twitching. Then the waves of shivering, sometimes it is localized also. Then some animals develop submandibular or periorbital edema. Periorbital means around the orbit, then there will be a edema, and patchy edema is also seen there. Here and there is edema, and sometimes edema on the head is also observed. And shifting leg lameness means the animals will have a stiff gait and there is severe joint pain are very common in this disorder, and the joints may or may not be swollen. Sometimes it may swell or sometimes it may not. The lameness can be very severe, enough to mimic a fracture or the dislocation. In fact, the farmers do confuse that the animal is having some fracture. Then dyspnea, the pulmonary emphysema and rails may be found in severe cases. Many animals, particularly cows in good condition and bullocks, become recumbent for a prolonged period. Then especially once they become recumbent from the high range 8 hours to several days or more, then they may require the assistance from the human side. And most animals lie in the sternal recumbency, that's the characteristic feature of this disease. But in severe cases, animals may be laterally recumbent. Especially this stature here very dangerous. Once the animals becomes lateral recumbent, then it is somewhat difficult for the management. Then the incubation period in natural outbreaks is unknown but suspected to be as short as the 36 to 48 hours, means just 1 to 2 days. Only heifers over the age of 3 months are clinically affected. Yes, this is the characteristic sitting pattern of the cows after the ephemeral disease attack. Then here also you can see that there is some brisket edema and some submandibular edema, which is confusing us about the disease. That's the traumatic reticular pericarditis or also peritonitis. What you call as, there is a characteristic jugular pulsation will also be there, but when you go for the blood examinations, you can find the change in the hematological and biochemical parameters. So many times these animals make us to have the confusion, especially with that of the traumatic reticular pericarditis. And most of them, they go for the sternal recumbency, then put their chin on the ground and groan. So then sometimes the animals may also become the laterally recumbent, and also they are not able to graze and get up. The shifting leg lameness is a characteristic feature of this disease. And apart from this one, you can see extensive subcutaneous emphysema in the clinically affected cattle with the bovine ephemeral fever. You can see the extensive subcutaneous emphysema, and many times after recovery also the animal goes for the subcutaneous emphysema. Then there will be a nasal discharge, then a total recumbency may also be seen if the cases are not managed properly. Whereas the animals after recovery, they develop the inflammation of the joint, or the joint is going to be enlarged. That is the first disease effect. And bovine ephemeral fever was observed as a fever with anorexia in all the diseased animals. Most of the time the entire herd get affected. So in a very big herd, the abortion rate is very high, that is the 4% of the diseases or cases. And we can also find subcutaneous emphysema in 2% of the cases, then respiratory distress in 47% of the cases. Recumbence in the 16% of the cases, then the stiffness is also seen. And lameness in most of the cases, that 63%, we can get the lameness, maybe the shifting leg or any other type of the lameness. And difficulty in swallowing, so maybe due to the paralysis of the esophagus. Meantime, the animals are unable to swallow the bowel of the food. In salivation, then the nasal discharge in 50% of the case, and in 63% of the cases, the lameness is a very common problem. And what we can summarize, generalize is 50% of the animals will have the salivation, and also this is this especially nasal discharge, and also 63% lamination. This lameness is a very common feature, and most of the animals there is a drastic reduction in the milk, about 25% of the cases. And some animals temporarily lose their reflex, especially the unable to get and become the downer. And the cows may be bloated, have ruminal stasis, or lose their swallowing reflex is also one of the common seen. And these clinical signs can be exacerbated by severe environmental stress, maybe too much cold or too much hot. Stress or forced exercise can be seen. Then most animals begin to improve a day or two after the initial signs and recover completely within another 1 to 2 days if there are no secondary complications. And in lactating cows, bulls and animals in good conditions are usually affected, and the severity is more in such animals. Generally, animals lose condition rapidly during the illness and regain only once the disease infection is over. And complications are uncommon in most of the outbreak, but can include temporary or rarely permanent paralysis. Yes, recently this is the pattern. Many times the permanent paralysis is also there, and there is a what you call as the gait improvement. All this will be there. Initially, lot of pain, and the animal is reluctant to walk, and the very ferocious animals become very docile. And the aspiration pneumonia, emphysema, mastitis, and the subcutaneous accumulation of air along the back is also another characteristic feature of this disease, that we call as the sequelae to this disease. And many of these complications may be a result of the trauma or the complications, especially the complications of the ephemeral fever. And permanent infertility is rare, but we can see that the abortions, and sometimes it is occurring up to 6 months of the age group, especially the temporary infertility, and it may be only the animal become infertile up to 6 months, but later it is going to recover. Then in recovered animals, milk production is drastically reduced for the rest of the lactation, but usually returns to normal after subsequent pregnancies. In the first pregnancy, the animal might have suffered, but later it is going to improve. Then the cows which are in the terminal stage of the lactation may not recover to the normal, and death is not uncommon in most of the outbreak, but may occur during either especially febrile or the convalescent stage. During this recent outbreaks in China, some severely ill cattle died with the signs of the dyspnea 6 to 12 hours after they first become ill. That's also one of the sign of this particular disease. Secondary complications such as the pneumonia or trauma are thought to contribute significantly to the death rate, and especially the subclinical infections, and these are seen. And water buffaloes have the similar clinical signs, but the disease is usually thought to be milder of this species, especially the buffaloes. They are not so susceptible. And however, some severe outbreaks have been reported, especially in the African countries. So the experimentally infected sheep remained asymptomatic, and that effort failed. Coming to the pathogenesis, experimental production of the disease requires the IV route of the transmission. Then virus multiplies, especially within the vascular systems, after an incubation period of maximum 2 to 10 days. They say biphasic fever with peaks 10 to 24 hours effect. So the fever lasts for the 2 days and increased respiratory rate is also seen. So the dyspnea, muscle trembling, lip stiffness and the pain are the characteristics of this bovine ephemeral fever disorder. So there is generalized inflammation with vesicular stomatitis, vesiculitis, then the thrombosis, then cerebrovascular inflammation in the serosa, then the synovial cavities and the increased endothelial permeability at the same time. Because of this thing, many times the fluid oozes in the peritoneal cavity and sometimes the animal may be under stress also. So we have to take care that sufficient the food with grain etc. need to be always given. And coming to the pathogenesis continuing, the viral growth takes place in the reticuloendothelial cells of the lungs, then the spleen, lymph nodes and not in the vascular endothelial and also the lymphoid cells. So these are exempted. Whereas especially in the lungs it is going to grow to the maximum extent. The pathogenesis reflects that the disease affects mediated by the activity of various the inflammatory mediators and cytokines. You know the varieties of the cytokines are also present. And injury to the blood vessels, joints and mucosa are linked with the massive production of interferons, massive production of the interferons in cells infected with this particularly this virus. Infection is associated with increased plasma fibrinogen and decrease in the plasma calcium, which leads to development of the clinical signs of the diseases. And the virus stimulates an early neutrophilia with left shift. It causes, especially virus stimulate the production of the neutrophils in the initial stages. Then the virus can be detected in circulating neutrophils and plasma, the serosal and also the synovial fluids, the mesothelial cells of the synovial membrane and epicardium and also the neutrophils in the fluids especially. So the clinical signs are believed to caused by the expression of the mediator of especially the cytokines. So these mediators especially they mediate the inflammation to increase to red cell and a secondary hypoglycemia is also going to be there. And coming to the post-mortem signing, the most obvious lesion is a small amount of fibrin rich in the fluids and in the pleural cavity. So lot of fluids will be filled, and the peritoneal and the pericardial cavities resulting from the polyserositis of the pleural and the pericardial and peritoneal surface. So small amount of fibrin rich fluid will be accumulated, and small amounts of the fibrin rich fluid is present in case of the pleural cavities, then the peritoneal cavities, pericardial cavities, then also the joint capsules at synovial surface. So this virus is a trophic virus toward the joint. And apart from this one, the edema, lobular congestion and atelectasis may be appeared in the lungs, and also the emphysema lesions are sometimes detected in the lungs. And mediastinum and subcutaneous connective tissues also will have the edema. And serofibrinous, that's also called as this polysynovitis with variable amounts of this yellow or brown, typically gelatinous type of the fluids, especially the polyarthritis, then polytendinitis and cellulitis. These are very common or the critical signs of the disease. So other lesions like this lymphadenitis, edema, then petechial hemorrhages in the lymph node and the entire area of focal necrosis in the major muscle group. So these are all the signs present. So this is the photography of the joint of the calf with the severe yellowish periarticular gelatinous fluid. So the students can understand this type of the lesions very commonly if you go through the photography, and thanks to the courtesy of the photographer. Then there will be extended neck and head is due to the respiratory distress. There will be open mouth breathing in the cattle. And apart from this one, this thoracic cavity is reflected. There is extensive or excessive fibrin on the parietal and the visceral pleurae, and also the cloudy fluid in the thoracic cavity. So these are also the common clinical signs. So if you cut upon the lungs, then we can see the pulmonary and lymph node edema. So there is a marked edema in the pulmonary and lymph node, and sometimes the inflammation, the partial and the visceral pleura may also be seen. And pericarditis, especially at the base of the heart, it is present, pericarditis. Then the diagnosis, most cases of the bovine ephemeral fever are confirmed by the serology, or many times in the Indian subcontinental, they are going to diagnose it symptomatically. A rising titer should be demonstrated, but single serum samples may be suggestive in the areas where this disease does not normally occur. And some of the anamnestic or rather the primary or secondary type of the responses to this bovine epithelio, especially the bovine herpes virus 1, bovine virus. This virus can occur during the first exposure itself if the animal was previously exposed to the another ephemerovirus. So there is a chance that this cross-reactivity may also be seen. And there are certain tests called as the virus neutralization or enzyme-linked immunosorbent assays are the most commonly used serological tests, especially ELISA. Then some of the tests, including the certain ELISAs, can distinguish between this BPV from other members of the ephemeral fever. So because already it has got another two families, so especially the Rhabdoviridae and also the vesicular stomatitis viridae. And hence a confirmation of the fixation was used in the past and identifies the antibody only as ephemeral fever specific. So this is the disadvantages. RT-PCR can be used, especially reverse transcription, polymerase chain reaction, RT-PCR assays are used regularly for the diagnosis, especially in case of some countries where they can afford for this thing, and especially in a farm, etc., very big farms, they are going to screen the entire animals with that of the RT-PCR. And these assays may be able to detect the viral RNA in the qualitatively, especially in the blood during the febrile period, which is very typically a short stature, and from tissue samples such as the lung, etc., the necropsy, especially the virus may be identified. A real-time loop medicated isothermal amplification, it's also abbreviated as RT-LAMP assay, has been published, and this is also one of the good experiment where we can amplify the genes, especially from the virus. And virus location isolation may occasionally be successful, and many times it is not also. So this is during the first 24 to 48 hours. It is very much required. Then the virus is often recovered initially in the Aedes albopictus or the mosquito cell lines propagated in BHK21 or the Vero cell lines, because this BHK21 and the Vero are one of the very commonly used this media, and the identity of the virus can be confirmed by RT-PCR and also the ELISA. Then immunofluorescence has also been used, but may be able to identify the virus only as an just ephemerovirus virus or ephemerovirus, that's all, or else many times it is very difficult to differentiate between the species. Then, while animal inoculation is generally discouraged, if there are the alternatives like this bovine, this herpes virus can be removed by intracerebral injection into the unweaned mice. So this can be produced also. Coming to the differential diagnosis, so many type of the diseases, especially the transient systemic malaise, specific conditions which should be considered like the differentiation parameters, like the botulinum, seven that will be there, then botulinum, then the babesiosis, the black color urine will be present, and infectious bovine rhinotracheitis, or also it is called as the IBR, and the bovine mucosal disease, then brutal sporadic bovine encephalomyelitis. Then apart from this one, the bacterial disease, the leptospira, laminitis, the vesicular disease, then also the vitamins, especially A deficiency, F and M virus, all these are there, and you can take out the list, especially the paired serum samples are always taken for the confirmatory diagnosis. Number one, there is a infection, then the host will be being infected with the virus, and acute phase lasts for about 1 to 5 days, whereas the convalescent phase is 21 to 28 days. So you can remember 20 to 30 days, what we can say. So in the age group, that's 21 to 28 days interval, there will be more observation like the four-fold increase in the antibody titer will be seen. Then you can take out the blood sample for the ease of the doing the tests, and the hematology, so WBCs will be increased, especially among the leukocytes. Lymphocytes will be drastically, they will be decreased. So the rapid lymphopenia may also be assisted, and the serum fibrinogen level, it totally increases to the greatest extent. And the marked neutrophilic leukocytosis coinciding with the onset of the fever is characteristic of the ephemeral fever, and could almost be considered as the pathogenic of this disease. The neutrophilia with up to 30% of the immature forms is another thing, and it's accompanied by the lymphopenia and eosinophilia, means decreased lymphocytes and eosinophils, and the plasma zinc and iron levels fall drastically during the experimental injection, and sometimes the serum non-esterified fatty acids levels are the significant, this is elevated, means it is increased. The severely infected plasma alkaline this phosphatase as RLC cattle may be depressed and often characterized by elevated creatine kinase, a kidney specific enzyme, and particularly the recombinant cattle. So they may be, this pattern is observed, and there is falls of 20 to 25% are common, and the frank hypocalcemia can occur in the small percent of the areas infected. So, but the underlying mechanisms are responsible for the aversion are not very well clear, but 20 to 25% of among the disease may cause such disorders, and many of the signs displayed by the affected animals and closely resemble especially the hypocalcemic cows. So you might have seen that some of the cows which are deficient in the calcium, suddenly they cannot get up, and if they get up they are unable to lay down. So, and drastic reduction in the milk yield. And treatment may be necessary in the milder cases, but more severely infected animals are often treated symptomatically. There is no specific line of the treatment, particularly when they have become recombinant. Yes, especially if the animal become recombinant and unable to get up with one or two efforts, then the treatment is very much required. Animals are often given the anti-inflammatory drugs with the addition of this calcium borogluconate. Then, because this is very much required for the rhinitis, paralysis, lot of loss of reflexes and writing reflex, what you can say. And some animals with a more prolonged course of the disease will be resistant to these measures during the recent outbreaks have been it is observed. So, in summary of this slide is whenever there is a ephemeral fever, there is a sure case of the hypocalcemia, and these look very similar to that of the animal which are succumbed for the hypocalcemic syndromes. Antibiotics may be administered to control the secondary infections, especially the opportunistic bacteria, and rehydration with isotonic fluid is sometimes it is employed always. And coming to symptomatic treatment, anti-inflammatory products which are of a number of currently available, and hundreds of the examples may be given. And the choice of a steroid or non-steroid product will depend upon the clinician involved in the constraints of those products with regard to the food producing animals. So the selection of non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agent, they themselves will go. They will not be available for the treatment of a veterinarian. And such treatment is generally expected to restore the treated animals to apparent normality in terms of fever and the clinical appearance to be normal. Then they are treated early in the course of the disease. And signs of the hypocalcemia, especially then are, so whenever there is a hypocalcemia in the body, then the remain stasis occurs, muscle tremors will occur, then paralysis should be treated with intravenous calcium borogluconate with very careful monitoring of the clinical response and also the avoidance of the dosing, what we say. So, for example, the oral administrations of any of the drugs, I am repeating, oral administration of any of the drug through the oral route should always be avoided. Then sometimes in some animals there is a absence of the swallowing reflex which may end up in aspiratory pneumonia also. Many times we say that please feed this medicine to your cattle, and over the phone also we suggest the farmers, but they will end up in the aspiratory pneumonia. But a request or the warning to the veterinary community and also the farming community, whenever the animal is suffering from the ephemeral fever, please try to put it in the warm weather, especially in case of the what you call as cattle shed with lot of distribution of the grasses, so that the animal should not get the direct touch with that of the earth. Then there is no specific only, and we can go for the appropriate symptomatic treatment in these viral diseases. So rest and lack of stress are very important, especially in case of the recovery. The animal need to be given sufficient quantity of the rest, means maybe 4 or 5 days, 6 days, depending upon the severity of the infection. Some animals take a long time, and it will make the farmer to worry about the recovery or prognosis of the animal. And cold water therapy on the body to lower body temperature, especially in the very hot weathers, and NSAIDs, non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, are the one drug of the choice now, and also on from the ancient era. The number one drug which is effective is the phenylbutazone at the rate of 8 milligram per kg, and especially 8 hours interval. So once you are given now, then after 8 hours the injection should be repeated. The preferred these NSAIDs are the fluniximab 2.2 kg body weight, or the ketoprofen 3 mg per kg body weight, or the very fast recovery agents, especially flumixin, meglumine. So ephemeral fever, you can use the flumixin, meglumine, or else you can go for the earlier drug, phenylbutazone. And also the recent agent, that is the ketoprofen, 3 mg per kg, IM also can be given. And the calcium therapy is required many times. Recommended animals should always require the calcium. Then the antibiotics are required to control the secondary bacterial infection, especially the secondary bacterial infection. That's why the area should be kept very clean and dirtless. And good nursing is also one of the important area. And recumbent animals should be provided with ad libitum water, food and shelter if necessarily. But please remember that do not make the animal to get standing, because the animal should not be forced to stand or move from one place to another place. So force feeding is not advisable due to the risk of the aspiration pneumonia. This result is also, there is a chance that the force feeding or force drenching out of the medicines, and laterally recommended animals may be rolled periodically to prevent loss of circulation and the muscle damage. Lot of damage and tearing may also happen, and hence the lateral recurrency should always be avoided. And boil ephemeral fever, the non-steroidal anti-inflammatory agents, as I already told, the choice is phenylbutazone, flumixin, and this ketoprofen. And sometimes the phenylbutazone and the sodium salicylates may be given together to reduce the inflammation and also the pyrexia. Then apart from this one, you can also administer the chlorpheniramine maleate, or also called as the CPM, and it need to be given intramuscularly to act as the anti-allergic respiratory in case of these respiratory diseases. And enrofloxacin, so a fluoroquinolone need to be administered to prevent secondary bacterial infection, and the paralytic animals need the treatment of the calcium borogluconate, then the vitamins, then the dextrose and mannitol for the period of 12 days it may be needed. So please careful, if the animal becomes dangerous, then one need to do all the efforts, lifting the animal, then making the animal pain-free, and also administration of the NSAIDs, and sometimes the antibiotics are also required. Some of the veterinary treatment, the farmers sometimes they ask, sir, what I can do to my animal as the first aid. Varieties of the trees like Rubus eucalyptus, Rubus this Phytolacca decandroma, then Pterocarpus huckeri, etc. also there. But only the caution is don't drench any of this homemade medicines for the animal. Any plant which is having anti-inflammatory nature, analgesic in nature, or the antipyretic nature can be selected. But it need to be administered orally without drenching. Then here you can see the animal has died. In the figure 1, the dead calf over the 6 months is showing severe subcutaneous emphysema involving the whole body, entire body is having emphysema. The second one is figure 2 is subcutaneous fascia of the dead calf showing the emphysema. So this is the emphysema, entire body emphysema is there. And the third picture shows lung showing the interstitial and pulmonary emphysema is also there in the third tissues. Fourth, the thickened, especially this opaque and emphysematous pericardium is also seen. Pericardium we are going to see. And coming to the histopathological changes, the lungs tissue showing cellular debris of emphysematous pericardium and also cellular debris. And another thing is lung tissues showing the focal leukocytic aggregations adjacent to the bronchi and also to the bronchiole. So these observations can be done with this histopathology slide. Please go to the 5 and 6 slides. Control. Is it possible to control the ephemeral fever? Totally we can say that it is not possible, but it can be prevented. And the illness and viremia are both transient and carriers are not known. A short quarantine in the vector-free facility should be prevent the introduction of this bovine ephemeral fever virus in the transported animals. So if an outbreak occurs among the imported animals in a limited area, placing them in the insect-proof area and treating the entire area with the insecticides, especially the deltamethrin or cypermethrin type of the insecticides. So this BEFV does not spread by casual contact or the secretions or whatever it may be, and it is rapidly inactivated in the carcass after the death of the animal. And coming to the vector control, the flying repellents such as the cypermethrin mixed with liquid paraffin may be applied as a pour-on method from the head to tail of the animal, and this need to be repeated every 7 days. And apart from this one, synthetic pyrethroid spray on the breeding places of the vectors as usual. The floors, walls, this manure, poultry manure, if it is very near, then this is a problem, and the slurry of the cattle shed. And apart from this one, remove stagnant water from the dairy farm. So this is also important, and proper disposal of the manure or slurry, it is very much required. Prevention, of course, and also the control, vector control, and another thing, second thing is the vaccination. Usually the live attenuated vaccines are available in Australia and other countries where there is a endemic areas. Vaccination is generally used to prevent the disease, especially particularly the lactating cattle and also the bulls. Although the insect control might theoretically be helpful in some situation, but its efficacy is not known, and moving valuable animals from the insect-proof facilities may be considered during the outbreaks, or there is a very high risk. So whenever there is an animal is costing more than 50,000 etc., you can cover up the animals in the tick-proof or the flying bisect free areas. And better to use fly or the mosquito proof mesh, which is very much suggested. Most of the time in Karnataka or India, the mesh is just to prevent the biting flies. Now it will not stop the mosquitoes, but it is very much required that the mosquito proof mesh is very required to prevent this disease. So the disinfection of the area can also be done through the sodium hypochlorite, and the virus does not persist for long periods in the environment. And if disinfection is very much required, then this virus is reported to be highly susceptible, just like the other Rhabdoviridae family, to the disinfectant, especially the sodium hypochlorite, and many times the lipid solvent, maybe the alcohol also. Then these are the references, important references I have referred for the preparations of this manuscript and the presentation. And why I am focusing this disease at this present juncture is from this December to March of every year in Shimoga and surrounding areas, the disease will be a rampant thing, and hence there is a very high populations of the mosquitoes. Then the veterinarians and the farmers are instructed to take care of the mosquito bite and also to treat the animal as early as possible before anything happens. And with this, I thank you all.